Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Time Career Chat. And I am your host, Patricia Hayes. So glad to be here. Pardon me. All right. So glad to be here to slip in a little extra few nuggets this particular week. And as we move forward on talking about issues that are really surfacing for people in real time, we've been doing that for a few weeks here. And so we're continuing that. This one feeds off of something that came up in the last session where I made a comment about not allowing the shame that shows up from others to um, steal your power. And that really struck home for me. So I decided to do that today, which is we're going to talk about strategies for maintaining your power during transitions. Okay, because it's a super, super important thing and one that many of us face, but don't really know how to name it or address it until after the fact. And having been through a few transitions myself, I am absolutely much more clear about when those moments happened and want to prevent that from happening for those of you who are on that path. So, but before we jump in there, let me officially introduce myself for those of you who are joining for the first time. Again, my name is Patricia Hayes. I am a executive advisor, career empowerment coach, and authentic networking strategist. And what that means is that I love working with people who are in the midst of some significant transitions when it comes to their career and their business. And they need support and accountability to be able to be stronger advocates for themselves, to speak from a more empowered space during the course of their transition, and absolutely to make sure that they are leveraging their most underutilized resource, which is their professional network. And so I help people to be able to do that, to use their network in a way that's purposeful, that's aligned with their values and their beliefs, and to do it in a sustainable way for the long term. So let's dig right in here with these strategies for maintaining your power during transitions. Here's the thing, transitions are hard. Let's just be realistic about that, right? Just lay it out there. And that is not to say they're hard and difficult, because sometimes the transition is good, right? Like even the good transitions can have challenging moments. So don't think that just because we're talking about a transition, we're talking about, oh my gosh, there's all these horrible things happening. It's not just all these quote horrible things. There can be good things, good reasons for a transition to be happening, and there still be challenges that have to be faced along the way. That is a reality, and anyone who tells you otherwise is not telling the truth. Okay, so whether the transition is one that you initiated or one that was initiated for you, you still have to know how to best move forward and to maintain your power during the course of that transition. Well, what do I mean by maintaining your power? This is not some power trip, right? We're not talking about making sure that stay in a quote position of authority or whatever. We're not talking about that. We're talking about internal power, making sure that you have what you need to get through the transition so that you can do it in a way that is empowered for you, a way again ultimately keeps you in a good space, not just professionally but emotionally, and that will help you actually build a platform and a foundation for the new space that you're going to. Okay, so the first thing that I note is that you have to continue, because notice I'm not saying to start, but you have to continue to develop a strong and resilient sense of self. Now, I put strong and resilient for a reason, because I am a huge advocate of not just saying, oh, you got to be so strong, because guess what? Strong things break, right? Strong things break, and we don't want you to be broken. So we do want you, however, to be resilient. Resilience, if you go even just look it up in the dictionary, is about being able to bounce back from difficult situations, to be more flexible, to bend without breaking. And so that's why I combine them. But it's because there are moments where you're like, okay, you got to be strong. But for those moments where you can't be strong because you feel like you're about to break, then that's when we need to shift to resiliency and to be able to do that from within. Okay. Again, a reason why I'm a huge, huge fan of journaling. Some people still think this is so woo woo. It's not woo woo. It's actually to get all of that craziness that's going on in your head down on paper because some of it is true and some of it is not. And we need to learn the difference between the things that are true and the things that are not. And a lot of times putting them on paper in front of you is really a good way to kind of assess that and be like, wow, I can't believe I was thinking that. Or where did that come from, right? So it allows you some opportunities to explore it further and to help you determine for yourself kind of where you are from a personal standpoint when it comes to addressing this transition. Here's the thing, during these times, it is crucial that you get some help. All right. It doesn't matter. It's a matter of what you know that you need help with. Okay. And knowing it is not always the thing we always want to act on, but it's probably the thing that we need. Okay. So we all know wants and needs do not always equate. We may want to get to a certain thing, but we may need something else in order to achieve it. So, this is why that self reflection is super important, to be honest with yourself so that you can move forward and get the help you need, whether that it's with, getting a coach, an executive coach, professional coach, career coach, whatever it is that you need. Um, maybe you need some therapy. We all have those moments where our lives, personal lives and professional lives collide, and we have to be able to move past that and move on with it, not past it, but move on with it. So sometimes we need to go get some therapy to help support us in our personal life while we're moving forward in our professional career. A support group, right? An accountability partner. Any of all of those things are options depending on where you need the support. Okay. I have been investing greatly in professional coaching over the course of the last several years. And I know that I will always have a coach. Like, since that point, 7 years ago, it's been now, I will always have a coach in some way, whether it's one who's supporting me in my emotional and spiritual growth, whether it's one who's supporting me in my professional growth, or in my professional growth to achieve a certain thing, right? I want to write a book. I want to, some other things I want to do. And so I may need a specialized coach to address those things. But know that you have to be willing to invest in yourself. This is that part of developing that strong and resilient sense of self, is really and truly getting outside of yourself to get the support that you need to move forward in the transition that you are in currently or that you're moving towards. Getting that support is absolutely non-negotiable. If you aren't willing to invest in your own growth and that support, then you can count on not getting very far. And that will seem very frustrating because you'll be like, well, but I was going and I was doing all these things. But if you're saying, yeah, but I can't do this or I won't do that or whatever, then you start limiting your options of where you can go next. And that's where you start to impact your ability to grow for the long term. All right. So work through, continue, figure out where you need to start and developing that strong and resilient sense of self so that you can be working from a good space when it comes to moving along in this transition. That's a lot of the insight work, I always say. Like, that's the insight work that we all have to do, whether it's a good transition or a not so good one. We all have to do a lot of insight work in order to prepare ourselves for that next level. The second thing is that you absolutely want to view past challenges as teachable moments, learning from them. This is one of the most difficult things to do. And here's the reason why. A lot of times, the moments that we need to learn from when we are, so immersed in them, we ain't trying to learn anything other than getting out. Right? We're trying to get out of them, particularly if it's a negative situation of some sort. We are not trying to see, oh, what can I learn from this? Because if it's a crisis situation or it's one that you're not a fan of, whatever the case may be, then you're probably are like, I just want to be done. And here's the thing, that is human, that is natural. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem arises when we stay in that mode, because then some of that can switch to being in denial and not really facing what happened. And so when you're not facing what happened, it means you're still there, right? You're trying to move forward, pretending like that didn't happen, but it means you still haven't you haven't dealt with it. And that becomes problematic as you move forward, because at some point you're going to hit a wall. And that wall is going to keep you from moving forward until you take care of what was going on prior. All right. So you want to focus on what you learned from the situation rather than what you lost or what you did wrong. Remember that? Focus on what you learned rather than what you lost. And that is super important because we take our work so seriously. And it has, and particularly if you're, live in the US, it becomes a part of you. And so learning to separate some of that is a process. It doesn't happen automatically because it's counter to what we're actually taught and how to engage with our work, right? And that's not to say it's wrong to do that, but it can become unhealthy. So, in order to set up a good space to move forward, when you are faced with challenging situations in the midst of a transition, make sure you're focusing on what it is you can learn from the situation rather than what the perceptions of what you lost in the process, right? If you were laid off, if you were fired, if you didn't get a promotion that you expected, those are all losses. And you will then start to think there was something you did wrong in order to deserve that thing or not get a certain thing. And guess what? Here's the thing that I've learned over time. Most of the time, most of the time, those things have nothing at all to do with you. There is normally a story, some other activities going on behind the scenes that you are unaware of at the time that they're happening, but they don't get revealed till later. So it's a very fine line to be able to acknowledge what's happened and not internalize it, and to then say, I did something wrong to deserve this. That's where that shame and guilt starts building in and starts taking you off your focus of what you need to do in order to move next. And I am not the expert on shame and guilt. Y'all know there are lots of folks out there, but Miss Brene Brown is the queen of that. I highly recommend several of her pieces of work to go check those out. They're really good for helping you to understand some more of that. And again, if you need support in terms of a coach or a therapy regarding that issue, because a lot of times other things start coming in and feeding on that. So take advantage of all of the support and the resources that you need and can have access to, in order to help you to learn to view those past challenges in a different way and be able to then start to accept, what did I learn from it? Are there mistakes that we make along the way? Absolutely. Absolutely. We all do. None of us are perfect. Anyone who pretends is lying, right? Like, we all make mistakes. What did you learn from it? Because at some point, that's what you have to acknowledge. Acknowledge the mistake. What did you learn? How can it inform you as you move forward? right? And that's where you really want to be, in that space, rather than being in a space of allowing others to shame you out of your power. That is a dangerous space. Do not allow the actions, the external actions and activities of other people to determine internally for you your sense of power and where you think you or should go next as a result of because of just of what they think. Okay, that's not healthy. That's not the space in which we want to move forward. Because we want to move forward, which is number three. You want to be able to build forward with and in grace. With grace, because as you've taken that look, as you've done that reflection work, as you've taken the opportunities to learn from the situations that you're in the midst of them, you know that there are going to be times that you have to extend grace to other people moving forward. And then in grace, because we have to be able to give ourselves some grace, some leeway along the way. Now, some of this conversation for some folks may seem like, oh, that's too woo woo. But anyone who has been through a significant transition already knows that this is the real deal. Okay. And if you're younger in your career and just starting out, guess what? The very fact that you are transitioning from, college or your first job to your first job or your second job, that is a significant career transition. You're moving into a really important part of your life as you're starting out. Okay. So don't underestimate the value of learning these lessons early. They can be so powerful in how you perceive situations and move forward. And as you learn from them all along the way, quite honestly, the more you learn sooner, the better off you will be much later in your career. All right. So those are the three main points. You want to make sure to build forward with and in grace, because here's the other thing that I thought about during that time period, which is you don't want to look back because you're not going that direction. Remember that quote? That is not my quote, but there is a quote out there. It's like, don't look back because that's not where you're going. The only time we talked about looking back was when it was to say what it was you could learn from the situation, but you're taking it and you're extracting that knowledge, what you learned, so that you can build on it to move forward. That is it. We are not living in the past. We are not living in the gutter of being in denial of woe is me. That is not going to do any of us any good. And I am speaking from experience. I have been there through some difficult career transitions where I spent probably way more time than I should have on a couple of them. All right. Real talk here. So I am saying from my own personal experience, from those clients that I've worked with, so many people who will speak to the truth of, you know what, at some point you have to extract what you can learn from this situation and let it go. Use it as a foundation to build on moving forward, not want to sink in. Like, don't let that become some sinking sand foundation thing. We don't want that. Okay. Use it to build a stronger foundation so that you can grow and transition successfully to the next part of your life, to the next part of your career, to the next thing the next thing that you're wanting so badly. Okay. So I encourage you to think about those in those ways, right? When you are looking to maintain your power during transitions, the strategies that are going to be really important for you to be able to do that successfully is to develop a a resilient sense of self, right? Do the internal work, acknowledging where you have some weaknesses, where you need some support, where you have a strong sense of things going on and how you can strengthen them, right? Secondly, to view past challenges as teachable moments. What can you learn from the experiences that you've had that you can then extract from them and move forward? And lastly, making sure that you build forward with and in grace. Okay? That's what I have for you today. So glad to be here with you as always. Let me hear from you. Let me know what you think about those thoughts. And I would love to hear some more specific situations where you had to, recognize the power that you needed in order to move forward in your career or business transition. Hit me up in the DMs, drop some comments below, and I look forward to being able to support you all along this journey. Take care, and I'll talk again with you soon. Bye bye.